Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our today's webinar, where we'll be discussing safeguarding externally shared files on Google Drive. My name is Rosita, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Zenphi. Today, I'm going to be moderating this event. And the speaker of our today's webinar is Vahid Taslimi, CEO at Zenphi, and he'll be joining us in a minute. We'll also have time for the Q&A session with him at the end of the webinar, so stick to it. And the last thing before we begin, so this session is being recorded, and you will receive a recording within a couple of days after the webinar. So keep an eye on your inbox. And with that, let's give a warm welcome to Vahid, who will continue the presentation.
Thank you, Rosita. And hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. I'm really excited today to talk to you about the Google Drive and how Zenphi can help you, achieving more compliance and security around your Google Drive. So we've got a few slides, just a few, and then we jump into the demo. I'll walk you through a few scenarios, and hopefully it gives you a very good understanding on how we can help you automate all those processes around security and compliance of Google Drive on autopilot. But first, let's have a look at the challenges that Google Drive brings. So I believe we are all here. I can safely assume we all believe how good Google Drive is. It's a very popular platform, one of the few platforms which was born in the cloud with collaboration and productivity in mind first. So everything was already in the cloud. So that means the scale of the files on Google Cloud is really, really high. And at that higher scale, managing them could pose a challenge as they grow, and there's more and more files on Google Drive, because they're so easy to create, they're so easy to share. It's going to be a lot more, and all of us have got a ton of files on Google Drive. As we've got more files, ensuring the security and compliance on these individual files, again, could be tedious and daunting task, given the size, the number of files, and the different ways that the files can be shared or exposed externally. Google probably knew this already. Manual auditing is not practical for these kind of situations. And there are APIs for Google has exposed APIs to use those things for auditing. But using those APIs, that means yet another task variety. You have to write code, maintain code, make sure security around those APIs are maintained properly. So it's a challenge on its own, as I'm sure you would all agree. The second aspect we want to look, I want to point out here is that, the collaborative nature of Google Drive is awesome. It's really, one of a kind. Everyone started following suit and doing what Google Drive does. But being collaborative and being born in the cloud comes with a few extra challenges. That means it has to be easy to share the file, and it is easy to share file externally, so bring people to collaborate and view the files. But making it easy, like everything else, when you make them easy, it comes at a cost, could potentially pose a risk to your security and compliance. So there's that aspect of it. And also keeping track of, as these files keep getting shared and shared and shared, keeping track of who's got access to those files externally is going to be another challenge for you. And all these unauthorized and unintended sharing could be, sometimes you want to share a file with just one person you're outside of your organization. It's so easy to do a link sharing. You do a link sharing, share it with that person, and that link can fall into the hands of the people which it should not have. So it can still pose another risk to security and compliance of your organization. And finally, with the security being at the forefront of every organization in today's environment. Basically all the organization, the majority of organization move to the cloud. Everything is being done in the cloud first, and with all the new regulations and compliance coming to effect to protect organization and individuals' data. Keeping up to date with security, this kind of compliance and security regulations wouldn't be an easy task for an already extremely occupied IT team. So there's a lot to do there. The regulations are evolving, and they're going to keep evolving as the industry matures. But you want to be able to quickly make changes to be compliant with the new regulations. And you don't want to, obviously, don't want to put your organization at risk, but not compliant to those regulations. Also, you don't want to share your company secret. You don't want secrets by mistake. Employees sharing your company secrets by mistake by sharing a file to a link sharing or with an unexpected user externally. So, as I mentioned before, Google has provided a few APIs there, has done quite a bit of job at the Google Workstation admin level, but still it's very reactive. It's time consuming. It still requires a lot of effort from IT to be able to keep track of it. And there's still a lot to be done manually by IT if you really want to keep an eye on your Google Workstation environment, and specifically Google Drive. As for Zenphi, if you're not already familiar with Zenphi, Zenphi is a no-code process automation platform. It enables you to quickly, with a few drag and drop, automate your business processes. This could be any processes across your businesses, or could be IT-specific processes like scanning Google Drives or identifying externally shared files and taking an action, or taking an action as soon as the file is shared externally. All can be done with drag and drop with in less than in matter of hours. I'm going to show you today. I've got two use cases for you to automate. The first use case, we're going to create a Zenphi flow, which is going to run on a specific schedule, and the flow is going to go across all of your employees' drives and shared drives and find all the files which are externally shared, and then put them in Google Sheet. And then from there, we can send it to IT for review. And also, if required, we can take it further and say, revoke the access or send it to the person's manager for review, or send it to legal for review, etc. So for that, this is what we're going to do. On the left-hand side, in order for Google Drive to be able to actually get all the externally shared files across your Google Drive, we treat them in two different categories. One is our shared files on my drives. So these are individual Google Drive belonging to each employee. And also, we're gonna scan through all the shared drives and find any file which is shared with an external member, either through a link sharing or through email sharing. So I've put down the steps for you. Each one of them got very few steps, like everything else in Zenphi, quite easy to do. And once we have the list of shared drives, shared files, Zenphi's power is going to be at your disposal. As I mentioned, you can send it to IT for review. You can automatically revoke access. You can send it to the file owner's manager to review the file sharing, or etc., or generate the report and archive the report. So without further ado, let's get started with building our first demo.
So I have already gone ahead and created a Zenphi space for this webinar demo. Next step is to go and create a flow. For the demo purpose, I'm going to use the trigger as on demand, but in real life, you may want to use it as a scheduled flow, so it runs on a specific schedule, say every day, every hour, or even every week or month, whatever works for you. But for the demo purpose, I'm going to use this one. Let's give it a name. List files. I'm gonna save this. So first thing we want to do, if you remember, we said we want to get a list of users in our organization. So I'm gonna go here, use an action called search users. This is the action. I can either select it from here, or if you go on the left hand side on the Google directory, scroll all the way down, this is the action, or you can drag and drop it from here. Now let's start configuring the actions. Let's select the connection. If you don't have one, just click on the plus button to create one. I'm gonna leave the information to return as admin view. You can change it to domain public, but gonna go with admin view, and gonna leave everything else the same. I'm gonna leave everything as is. I'm not gonna configure any further, but if you wanted to, you can limit the users, you know, refine the query, return only users from the cells or path, for example, etc. Now, if I look at the output of this, it gives us a list of users in our organization and all the information that we've got. Gonna rename is to list users. Now that we've got a list of users, we wanna, for each one of those users, we wanna check their My Drive and see if they have shared any file externally. So we do a for each loop here, and we look through the users for each user. All we need to do is look for the action called search for a list a user's externally shared files. Let's start configuring the action. Starting with connection, this action needs a connection with domain delegation enabled for it. I've already created one, but if you don't have one, you can create one. It's a bit different to the normal action, normal connections that you create in Zenphi, because it needs, as I mentioned, to have domain delegation rights. So there's guide how to create this connection. Click on learn more here, and we walk you through how to create it. So basically, in summary, using this connection, you're gonna run this action on behalf of a specific user in your organization. In our case, is the user that we loop in the loop. Go ahead here and say basic for each one of the users. Get the primary email address and run it. And here we specify what we consider as the internal domain. So that means if something is shared, for example, with test.zenphi.com, like anyone at test.zenphi.com, we consider as an internal user. We can add more. If it's anyone at, for example, example.com, we also consider as an internal user. Otherwise, it will be an external sharing. This is on top of the sharings which are done through link sharing. Here I'm going to say I'm interested in files, so that is quicker. We say no, and I'll leave everything as is. Like a previous action, if you want to refine this action, filter it further, you can use this query section. And if you click on the link here, there's a lot of guides. There's a useful guide here how to use queries, how to write queries. For example, you can say, give me only actions whose name contains hello and which are shared externally, or all the PDF files which are shared externally. In that case, you want to put MIME type equals application PDF. And you can mix and match any one of these and put it in the query if you want to filter the results. But I'm gonna leave everything as is, and the next step, I'm just gonna add the result. If anything found, I'm gonna add it to a Google Sheet. I have already created a Google Sheet here. Excuse me, I've prepared a Google Sheet here, so we plan to capture this information for each of the files. Now let's go and populate that sheet. Say add multiple rows. I can add them one by one as well if I wanted to. perform like more operations. Say for each file, I wanted to get the owner of the file, and for that owner, I wanted to get the manager of that person and add it to the sheet. But for our case, I want to add it as in batches, so it's a lot quicker and a lot more efficient. Sheet on, and I want to add list of files as headers. Let's start configuring. So the owner, actually I'm not going to get from the action result. I'd rather get it from we'll get it from here, the for each, the current user in the for each. But the rest of the items I'm going to get from the action, the previous action result. Yeah, name, MIME type, share type, and finally view link. Just again, for the demo purpose, I'm using these fields. You can use any other fields combination that may work for you. So that's pretty much it. Now let's do a quick save and do a test run and see it in action. Start. So first it's gonna get a list of users. I think we have around 7-8 users in this demo or test workspace, Google workspace environment. And start looping through them, and one by one, if any one of them has got any externally shared files, whether it's through a link sharing or to sharing through email, they get added here. As you can see, the first batch was added for this user, and we should see, I think, a few more getting added here. It's still progressing. Coming back here, a few more got added, and another few more got added. You can see this one, for example, is shared through domain sharing. This one is shared with a Gmail account, and same here, is shared with the user. So, and you can take this further for sure. You can now send a list to IT, to their managers to review and confirm if you want to keep them shared or you want to remove sharing. Okay, that's the first step. But remember, this is just for the My Drive files which reside on My Drive. Now there's another aspect to Google Drive, which is a shared drive. Shared drives, the file which are on shared drives are not owned by any specific user, but rather owned by shared drive. So we should treat them a bit separate, differently. Now let's go ahead and start getting a list of files which are shared externally on shared drives across our domain. I'm gonna put it at the top here. So first thing we want to do, we want to get a list of shared drives in our domain. Let's start configuring. Or you've got a connection. Excuse me. You want to say execute at domain admin. You want to set that to yes, because this one, setting it to yes, will return all the shared drives in your Google Workspace account, whether you're part of it or you're not, you're a member of shared drive or you're not. If you set it to no, it will only return the ones which you're a member of. The same thing for query. You can limit the result by going to this link and getting a list of items that you can filter the result on. Now that we've got a list of shared drives, we want to do another for each. Let's just start configuring it for each shared drive. And for each one of them, we want to go and get a list of externally shared files. There's an action called, again, if I search for external, list externally shared files on a shared drive. If you start configuring the action, this one also need a connection with the domain delegation enabled. We need drive ID, which we get from the for each. Same thing the domain, put test.internal domain.zenphi.com. We need an extra configuration here is member email. The action is basically asking, who do you want me to run this action as? And you have to run it as a member of that shared drive. Doesn't matter which member, because all the members of the shared drive have got access to all the files, so they can query the file properties. So for that, we go here and say, if I search for members, this shared drive members, I go here saying that for this shared drive ID, and yes, I want to run it as an admin view. Give me 10 members, or it doesn't matter, 1 member or 10 member, because all we need is 1 member. So this one returns a collection of members. So we need to use another action here called query collection to get a single member of that a single item from that collection. So member, here I go and say, just give me the first one. So we're getting the first member, and now that we have got that, here we say go and run this action on behalf of this email address. I'll do the same thing, files, I say no, and again you can do similar queries here, say have MIME type equals PDF or doc, or even you can configure a parent folder ID, etc. Okay, now that we've got a list of files, we do the same here. Actually, let me copy paste the actions. I'm being a bit lazy, but that does help. With the time, this one I'm gonna put it here. Basically now I want to populate the second tab, this one. So from which collection? From this collection, and let's just owner email address is coming from actually it doesn't have owner email address, so I need to refresh the column. Drive ID is coming from for each ID. Drive name is also coming from for, this is item name. Wrong button. For each, here, drive name, file ID is coming from here. Keep pressing the wrong one. File ID, name, MIME type, and share type. We don't have the last column. Okay, I believe we are all good to go. I'm gonna put a terminate here so we don't run the rest of the logic which we have run already. Yep, looks good to me. Save, do a test run, start new instance, go back here. Oh, I didn't mean to close it, but that's fine. We should see items being added here. So as a reminder, it's already they're already being added. So there's an item which is on this shared drive with this ID. This is a file ID, and it's shared with anyone with the link, and the other one is also shared with on the other hand, the other one is shared with a user with email address. So now a combination of these two give you a list of all the files which are externally shared across your Google Workspace environment. As I mentioned, you can you're in charge. You've got all the tools to limit the result. Should you want to limit the result, for example, if you want to search on a specific Google Drive, or a specific folder, or limit the result to users within a specific organ, you can do it all. Now, once you have the information down here, Zenphi's power is at your disposal. You can take it further. You can assign a task to IT, send it to IT to review through Zenphi task. Assign a task for IT to review, or if you're already using an internal ITSM system like Jira, you can go and create a Jira service desk ticket. If I find Jira here, you can go and create a ticket and assign it to a respective person to have a look, or if you're using Asana or Trello or other systems, you can just keep using those systems and create a ticket for them. So this was the first scenario. As you can see, within less than 15 minutes, we can get a list of externally shared files. We can make this run periodically, let's say every day, and for you to review and take action on them. Okay, so I'm going to remove this one. Let's just start having a look at the second scenario I wanted to show you. The second scenario, on the other hand, is very reactive, as in we want to be able to take action as soon as an event happens. In this case, the event is when a file is shared externally. As soon as it's shared externally, we want to take an action, and that action could be revoking the file sharing or just sending it for review. But the most important thing is that we get notified as soon as a file is shared externally. So for that, we're gonna create another flow with a Google Audit Trigger. I'll walk you through Google Audit Trigger, but basically it gives you ability to keep an eye on all the events happening in your Google Workspace environment. And then we got to get information for the file which is shared, and then notify IT. Okay, let's actually jump back into here and start automating the second flow that we have. I think I've lost my mouse. Yeah, there it is. Press save, go back out here and create a new flow. This time I want to use Google Audit Activity. This is an extremely powerful trigger. It gives you ability pretty much to monitor all the events happening in your Google Workspace environment and take an action on it. If I start configuring the action, you give it a connection. The user you use to create this connection needs to have admin rights in your Google Workspace environment. The next thing is asking me, which of the Google Workspace services do you want to monitor? We can monitor all these things. We can say, I want to monitor user security and say, as soon as someone disables two-factor authentication, let me know and I'm going to take action here. You can monitor calendar and say, as soon as an event is created with this set of criteria, let me know. Or for our case, for Google Drive, we can say as soon as a file that is downloaded, let me know. Or a file is created, let me know. So you can get a list of events that you're able to monitor, application events, by clicking on this link down here. So it brings you to this page. This is for Google Drive, and on the right hand, so you can see you can monitor all of these events. You can monitor specific events, or if you just choose Drive, you get notified for all of the events. When a file is copied or downloaded, when a revision is pinged, all these events you can monitor. Or you can go to the other ones on the left hand side. You can see there's quite a few things here for each one of the applications. Google Workspace application, you can monitor separate events. Now, for us, what we want to monitor, what we want to get out of this is that we want to get notified as soon as a file is shared externally. Now the files can be shared externally through two different ways. One is by through link sharing. So you create a link. If I go back here, maybe I can show you here. I'm not sure you all know this, but we have a quick look. We can either come here and say anyone with a link, or you can add an user, an external user who is not in your organization, and then the file visibility gets changed to external. So for that, there are two events that we are, excuse me, there are two separate events that Google raises. One is link sharing visibility change, and user permission change. I believe that's the one. However, we can go ahead and create an event, a flow per event, monitor it. But for our case, what we're gonna do, we're gonna use another trick. We want to say go Google Drive, monitor all the events for all the users. However, I want to create a filter. Only notify me when visibility changes to external. And this is a filter you can specify. If you wonder where this filter comes from, if I go down here, back here, for example, if I go and user permission change, you see down here you get a list of parameters which gets passed to you uh, for this event. And you can use these parameters, any of these parameters, only once in the filter criteria. So for example, you can go and say where file to doc type equals PDF, and um, and this is the one I use. Visibility is changed to shared externally. So we say, irrespective of the event which happens to on Google Drive, if a file visibility changes to shared externally, let us know. So that's all. That's all we need to configure. Visibility change equals external. Let us know, and let's do a quick run. Actually, let me do a quick log to history. I'm gonna log a few things here. So actor is the person who is actually sharing the file, performing this event. But what I'm after is event name. And yeah, print out the parameters. So we can talk about parameters as well. Let me try to say event name, and then meters parameters. Yeah, that's all I want. Actually, let me do this. Makes it easier for me to explain it when we're running it. Set run name. I want to set the run name to the event name. Okay, I'm just going to publish it. Give it a name. Externally, and just publish the flow. So the flow is published now. Now if I go here, I'll create a new file, Google Docs, external. I just put an E here so it gets saved. So I go here, share the file. So as if I press done, if I go back to Zenphi, go back to run, I should see 3 new runs happening. So we got called 3 times by Google. So that's every time the visibility changes to external. So 3 events get fired by Google, but we are only interested in certain. But we are only interested in certain events, and those events are change document visibility and change user access. So this one happened because we made a change to link sharing. If I go and make a change to, let's add a new one. Let's say Google Sheet this time. Shared with external user. Put 1. So we would get a different events here because I'm gonna share it with an external user which is not in our domain. It's by email. Yes, I want to share it. And I go back here, do refresh, we should see another set of events. So out of the three, we are interested in change user access and change document visibility. So in order to avoid one in the other ones, I just put an if statement here, saying if trigger.event name equals to change user access, or event name equals to change document visibility. So we are only interested in visibility. We are only interested in these two events. So should process. If otherwise, I'm gonna terminate the flow. And I'll bring it here so you can see you only get those two events. Now that we've done that, if I go to any one of these events, remember I printed out parameters. So for each event, we get a set of parameters passed to us as key value pair. So like we've got name and value. And these parameters are basically, you'd expect them to be based on the event, you expect them to be these parameters, and the values, possible values are mentioned here as well. So the way we can access those parameters is by using the action that we already used, query collection. So because we go in here and saying go to the parameters collection, enable filtering, and get me where name equals, for example, in our case, we want to get the doc ID. That's a file ID we want to get. And I say get the first item, so we know there's only one item, get doc ID. And we can extract multiple values like this. So for example, if I want to do the title, I'm fairly certain that it was doc title, the name, something like this, title. We can confirm it from here. If I come back here, we should see something like, yep, doc underscore title. So we can say doc type and the rest of the values as well. And one last thing I want to extract is the visibility. So if I again paste this action, and so get T, and here server. So this is the new visibility of the file. And now that I've got here, you know, I can go and get the manager of the person who's performed this action, get manager, look up the manager of the person who has performed this action from the actor, and assign a task to that person, or just send an email to IT to review the change. So actually in our case, let me do a send email. Quickly configure it. I'm going to send it to the same user Rahida test.zenphi.com. Subject, the file just got shared externally. Hi, and I'll put the actor email just share the file, and I can type I can get the file name from the output of doc title, and I need to get the value of it, and I put maybe file ID there. You just share the file externally. The new visibility of the file is and since we're getting visibility, I am going to put this value there as well. Let me fix the spelling mistakes, and please act accordingly. Okay, that's pretty much it. So like the other one, here you can go and create a Zenphi task. You can generate a PDF report. You can create a Trello card. You can create a Asana card. Whatever IT system you use it, you can, or a Google Task, whatever IT system you can use it, you can do it all in here. So if I press publish, and I'm gonna go here, add a third file, Google Slides, external file, shared, so that it gets saved. I press that, and maybe I'll just do link sharing. Done. So let's go back to Zenphi. Let's go back to the runs. Do refresh. You can see it's already running and it's already ran. If I go back here, I should have received an email. The email has come through, says this person just shared a file externally. This is the file. The file naming of the file does not help with the body of the email, but this was a file name. This is a file ID, and the new visibility of file is people with link. So with that, I hope you see how easy it is, to keep an eye on your data, your precious data on Google Drive, and making sure people by mistake do not violate your policy, sharing policy, and take an action. If it happens, you can take an action as quick as possible, so you avoid all the headaches that it may cause later. As I mentioned, this was just around sharing. You could do a lot more in here. Like for example, if I as I mentioned, this was just around sharing, but there's a lot more you can do. For example, you can create maybe I quickly show you this one because we may have a bit of time. You can create another flow which says, if someone downloads more than 10 files in, say, I don't know, 10 minutes or 1 hour, just suspend the user. Quite easy. You come here, you say, application, drive, and say download. You can do the filter as well, and each time if someone downloads a file, this flow is going to run. First thing you want to do, you want to go and say list activities. Now you go and query activities for that user. If I go to actor email, application is drive, event name is download, and say we want to, since three hours ago, so we go here and say add date. Here we say, the event time. Where's the event time here? At minus 3 hours. Minus 3 hours. So that means since 3 hours ago, and go and see how many downloads this user has had. And then put an if condition here, saying that if if number of sorry, this one I'm interested in, number of events is greater than whatever number, say 10. That means if users downloaded more than 10, downloaded more than 10, just here you can go, say, be a bit harsh and suspend the user, uh, suspend the user, or notify the manager, notify the IT. So as I mentioned, with all this capability that you can play around with, and the beauty of Zenphi is that you can create a solution which works for you, for your organization, for your way of working.
Okay, with that, it's back to you, Rosita. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vahid, for this great demonstration. I hope everyone who is watching the webinar will be able to build their own customized, unique processes inside Zenphi based on these examples. And we do have some time for a Q&A session, so please post your questions to the Q&A section, and I'll remind you that it's located at the bottom of your screen. And while you do that, I will quickly check if we have anything that is waiting for us already. And we do have one question. So the first one, this is a great solution, thank you. Can one flow monitor events from multiple Google Workspace services, for example, Calendar and Drive?
Okay, thanks for that question. No, actually, so the way Google works, you have to monitor each of the services separately. So if you want to monitor Calendar and Drive, you have to create two different flows. And I mean, as I showed you, you can narrow it down to specific event in each of the services, or you can just monitor the service for all the events and then filter them out in your flow. However, bear in mind that's gonna be very chatty. There's a ton of activities happening in Google services, and each time one of those activities occurs, they're gonna call your flow. So um, my suggestion, the direct answer to your question is that no, you have to create two different flows. Both flows can call the same another flow if you want to have some shared logic. However, just bear in mind that it's recommended to monitor specific events for each service, so it doesn't get really chatty between Google and Zenphi.
Okay, cool. Thank you for your response. And we have another question. So if a shared drive has an external member, will Zenphi list all files on that shared drive?
Actually, that's a very good question. Yes. It's interesting you asked that because I was planning to also show that, but conscious of time I didn't. So yes, the answer is yes. It's gonna show all the files on that shared drive. Whether it's one file, whether it's 100,000 files, it's gonna return all the files. Which is logically true because all the files now are shared with an external member. So if to avoid that, we've got another action in Zenphi called get shared drives with external members. So what you can do before running the files, get list files, list external shared files for a shared drive, you can check if the shared drive has got an external member. That means all the files are already inherently externally shared. So you can just mark that shared drive as a shared drive with externally shared member and skip that one as well.
Okay, thank you. We have some more questions, but unfortunately the webinar time is over. But don't worry, we'll get back to everyone whose questions weren't answered through the email. Again, thank you so much for joining us today and asking questions. We really hope to see you at our future webinars. And if you have any questions, we are happy to assist you. Just drop us a message at success@zenphi.com and we'll be here to support you. Again, thank you and have a good day. Bye.